go ahead and start with us a little bit about, the definition, who might be at risk, and some of those red flags.
Yeah, definitely. So just a general broad overview of what elder financial abuse is. We define it as the illegal or improper use of a vulnerable adult's funds or property for another person's profit or advantage. So that can be property, funds, money, manipulation, any of that. And so, we just want people to know what that is and what they can look out for, because it can come in identity theft, debit or credit card use, lottery scams, internet scams, just a whole plethora of things. And unfortunately, it can happen with caregivers, family members, or strangers. So you have to just be really careful who's in your life and who you're allowing to care for your senior. Or, if you're a caregiver, that you're also making sure that you're taking care of yourself, so that, people can't look and possibly think that you had something to do with this. So you just really want to make sure that you look out for that, because unfortunately, according to the National Council on Aging, 60% of elder abuse is done by family members. So, that it can really just go unnoticed. So you just want to make sure you're very aware. And people who are more at risk, unfortunately, are those with dementia or Alzheimer's, or people that are socially isolated. And so many seniors are socially isolated right now. My own grandmother is socially isolated right now. It's a hard time. And so, scammers are definitely preying on that, and it's a popular target right now. So it can be very hard. So that's another thing to watch out for. And of course, our seniors that are in nursing homes and long-term care facilities, they can also be targets, just because, a lot of their personal items and funds are on display in their rooms. So you have to be very careful who you trust. So those are just kind of, that's a general overview of what financial elder abuse is, who's at risk, and who we need to look at for that. So if you want, we can go ahead and go over some red flags.
Yeah, let's definitely do that, because now that we're all paying attention as to, again, this is very prevalent. It happens like most things that are not great. They happen when you least expect it, right? If we were expecting it and ready for it, it would happen less. So this is really important. Yeah, tell us some of those red flags.
Yeah, so just some general red flags that you can look out for if you're a caregiver, let's say. A senior who's very active, loves to go out and do things. You see that they stop attending outings, they stop spending money on normal necessities like clothes, food, medical care. So you just kind of stop seeing them all together, which can be a telltale sign. Another one is that their bills start piling up. If you're a caregiver or a family member, you may see this more so than if you were just a friend or someone who maybe just knew that person a little bit. So you see that their bills are piling up. Even if they do have the adequate funds to pay for this stuff, that can be a sign that maybe those funds are going somewhere else. Another one that we watch out for a lot at launch is if our seniors are visiting the financial institution with a new person and they're asking for a large sum of money to withdraw. So they can seem maybe nervous or on edge with this new person, and they're asking for these large sums to be withdrawn to give to this person. So that's another one that we really watch out for. Just a very popular one, and I think that is very easy to see, is when a new caregiver or friend pops up. So if you're not your senior's caregiver, or you're just a family member, or you're a senior and someone wants to be your caregiver, that's something to really watch out for if it's a new person. Unfortunately, we have to be very cautious of the people that come into our lives. And it's unfortunate, but it just keeps us safe to kind of vet those people and know. So we want to always be cautious when someone new comes into our lives, especially if they're looking to be a caregiver or a close friend. Another one is when that senior becomes distant and they begin to only spend time with those new caregivers. So you have a new caregiver come into their life and then they just start spending time with them. So then you're seeing even less of them. So you don't know what they're doing. You don't know where their money's going. You don't know how they're feeling because you're not communicating with them anymore. And another one that we also look out for at launch is when, you add someone new to your bank account, or you open a joint account with someone that you don't know or that you're not familiar with. This is another sign for caregivers too. If your seniors, trying to open an account with someone brand new or trying to add somebody to their account. So those are some of the general red flags that you can watch out for. It may seem like you're being really cautious and, you're really nitpicking, but these are kind of the initial things you can do to prevent the elder financial abuse from happening.
That's a great observation. In fact, I've talked to some people, and our seniors, our caregivers, and our community as a whole are full of caring, wonderful people, right? That we couldn't do our services, our Meals on Wheels, our, Seniors at Lunch, our TransServe, our volunteer programs, without these wonderful people. And unfortunately, not everybody thinks the same way, and they can very easily get taken advantage of. So you have folks that, well, you want to give somebody a second chance, right? You want to give everybody a chance. So I was speaking to one wonderful person recently, and she's like, well, everybody should have a chance. So sometimes that's taken advantage of, and the person that is looks like and maybe trying to, with their best foot forward, right, to try and improve their lives, or sometimes they're just not. But if you have that caring heart that's going to let someone in your life, it can lead to some scary, damaging, and maybe financially, destroying your life, that kind of process. So
you want to be trusting, and
right, exactly.
Everybody wants interaction and social interaction and friends around them that they can trust. It's just finding the right people to trust, which can sometimes be very hard, which is why just looking at some red flags and tips can hopefully just, nip that in the bud from the beginning, that you don't get caught up in that. But then the right people do get through. Like the people Aging Matters, those people are there to help the seniors in Brevard County and be there for them. And that, these are trustworthy people that seniors and caregivers can trust. So just, turning to organizations like that when you're looking for help can also be a prevention tool as well.
And I also really like how you said that at the bank, at launch, you're watching, you get to know your clients like we do, right? And so when they come in and there is something that's way different, out of the norm, that's a red flag. And so it's really important for us to see that as well. And like you said, reaching out and keeping in touch with your isolated senior friend or family member, because if you're not reaching out and keeping an eye on them, there could be a chance, like you were just saying, somebody with unhonorable intentions come in and do that kind of thing. And especially right now, because people are so lonely and so isolated, we were just talking about it before we started recording. There's only so much Zooming, right, you can do. And sometimes a lot of our seniors, they don't have that opportunity. And so for all of us who feel a little stranded and a little out of the, loop from our normal lives, we got to think how much that's compounded for a senior who might have had a church to go to every week, or again, our Seniors at Lunch program. That isolation really hits, and some people, I think, get desperate in a way of just needing that human contact. And again, unfortunately, not everybody has the best intentions. So those red flags are crucial. Can you give us some examples of actual scams that happen between friends and strangers?
Mm-hmm. So we'll start out with some caregiver scams. So it's so unfortunate. And I think this all the time. It's unfortunate that it can happen with a caregiver, because we have amazing caregivers out there who need resources and help. And then of course you have those few bad apples. So, even though it's just a few, we still want to highlight those so people can know what to look out for. If a senior and their family has a new caregiver, or that senior can watch out for these things as well. So unfortunately, a big one, and this can happen a lot in, places like assisted care facilities and nursing homes, is that money or property is stolen from a senior. So I think it's important to make sure that your valuables are in a safe, protected place, and that your money is as well. Another thing you can look out for is if a caregiver is charging really high fees or astronomical fees for their services. That's another one that you can look out for as well. Another one is lying about how much a senior's bills cost, so that you can pocket that extra money. So another thing to be cautious of and aware of is know how much your senior's bills cost, possibly help them set up a budget. And so what's coming in and out every month, so that when someone new does come in to take over that responsibility, you still at the end of the day know what everything costs and what it should be costing, so that there will be no mix up with that. Another one, which is super important, is checkbooks. So obviously, financial institution, we know a lot about, checkbooks and giving out those checkbooks and keeping them safe. It's so, so important to keep those protected and safe, because, someone can take a senior's checkbook, forge their signature, make a check out to themselves, and then they're out a lot of money. So you want to make sure that those things are very protected. And of course, another big one is that this caregiver can end up manipulating the senior into signing over property, making them power of attorney, signing over things to them in their will. So you can really want to make sure that you watch out for that too, because anybody can be manipulated. And the last thing is to get yourself manipulated into signing over your property. So those are some caregiver scams. Unfortunately, I hate that they're called that and that we have to say them that, but there are a few bad apples where that can happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then there's also, of course, the stranger scams that come from externally. What are some of those?
These are some ones that, I mean, they can literally happen everywhere. They can happen on the phone. They can happen in person. They can happen over the internet, through email. It's just scammers are coming from everywhere and attacking us. And they're attacking everybody. But some of the ones that are just kind of geared more towards seniors, our first one is the lottery scam. So this is something like you get a call and you've won a contest or a sweepstakes, and you just have to pay a little bit of money to get your big prize. Which everybody knows, I mean, that can be enticing if something pops up like that and you're like, oh, I finally won something. You just want to make sure if you didn't enter this contest or the sweepstakes that you know that this can be a scam. And especially when you're receiving a prize, you shouldn't have to pay anything to receive that prize. Another one are robocalls, which these are just outrageous. I think that everybody receives robocalls, and they are just constant, and they're getting even more savvy. So they can call you, and you really might think it is somebody or someone from your account. So these are ones to really watch out for. So one is like they can call you and say, you know, hey, we're calling from the electric company, or your bill is past due. You need to wire us this money or send it in a gift card immediately. Or our favorite ones are like, you're going to jail. A lot of them will be like, you're going to jail, to like really people. And that freaks me out. I get really scared.
And in fact, we were talking about that. We don't talk, because our client, we don't deal too much financially with our clients, but I have heard that where people go, they called and said, you didn't pay your taxes, or you're over on your Social Security. And then you have a senior who might be living at home or at the beginning of dementia, or anybody. You're telling me I'm going to jail. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to not do that. It's, Emily, is there any, and we might be getting to this, but is there any validity to if, someone says, wire us the money, then probably, and again, I might be jumping ahead, but where you stop and then before doing that, you actually make the incoming phone call, not from a phone number they gave you, but to the organization. So if they do call and say they're from, a Spectrum or Bright House or Launch or anything like that, as opposed to continuing with that phone call, go, oh my goodness, let me give you a call back. And you can take their number, but don't call back that number. Call back directly to the institution, which is why it's helpful at Aging Matters and Brevard and Launch and your businesses you work with, is to know someone that you can call directly, right?
Yeah, it's great to have a local institution that you can interact with. That's why, serving the local community is so important, and especially going with those types of businesses, because you can feel like you're able to call and kind of validate that, because you would want to visit their official website or call their official number and talk with them about this so that they know, and they can figure out together if that's a scam or not. Another one that is really common is a romance scam. And this is when you meet someone online, you fall in love, or you begin to really like this person, and they need money to either get back to the States or to pay medical bills or something so that they can get to you to meet you. You never want to do this. This is something that our fraud specialist at Launch, Evelyn, talks a lot about. You never want to wire somebody money that you don't know, or give them money, especially when you meet them online. If you do want to meet them and see them, it's best to just meet in a very public place. But at the end of the day, if they want money, it's probably a scam. So you really want to avoid that altogether. Another one, which is a horrible one, and I just think that this is one of the worst, is the funeral scam. So this is when a stranger can approach you at your spouse's funeral and they're demanding money for an unpaid debt. So they can look at you and say, well, your spouse owed me this money, they never gave it to me, like, you got to cough it up now, whatever. So you really want to, that's a pretty bad one. And you just want to really be cautious of that, especially maybe something like a funeral that you're really involved in that process with your senior or whoever it is, and that you're with them through all of it, so that, they don't have to deal with that on their own. Because on the other flip side of that, especially when you're paying for the funeral, you don't want to get into a sticky situation where you have a funeral director that's taking advantage of you and is saying things like a casket or other services for the funeral are double what they initially said because of some unforeseen circumstances. So you really want to have somebody with you during that process so that you can check that, fact check it, stop that in its tracks, for sure. Another one, like you were talking about earlier with your grandmother, is the grandparent scheme. So this is something like someone will call the senior and be like, hey, grandma, guess who? And then they're like, oh, hey, it's Emily. And so then they're like, well, I really need money because I'm in an emergency. I need it immediately. or, like my car's broken down. And so then you can get caught up in the grandparent scheme. So that's another one, and a sad one, but one to look out for. Another one is an investment scam. So, someone can call you and say that they can get you triple or double your money back for investing in, what we may call like a pyramid scam, or a really intricate financial product. So you want to be really careful when someone you don't know is calling you, asking you to invest in a product that you don't know anything about, because this can happen with anyone, and it does happen with a lot of people. And so you just want to make sure that you do your research, and that, if you do have someone that looks over your finances or your investments, that you check that with them. Another common one is a Medicare scam. So this is when, this is kind of like a robocall. People are calling as a Medicare representative and asking for your personal information to verify your account or benefits. This is a huge one, because people can really call and get your social security number, your address, things like that. And then they use that to access more of your other, secure information. So that's another one. They won't call, Medicare, they won't call to verify something like that over the phone. So you just want to make sure that you watch out for that. And our last one that we were going to talk about today is the counterfeit prescription drugs. So we all know that prescription drugs are so expensive. And they can be. And sometimes you can get good prices online. So sometimes people will go and they'll look online and they'll find an unbelievable deal. Well, of course, everyone always says that is the first hint that it is potentially a scam. When it's
too good to be true.
So that is another one to really be careful of, because you could end up with an unknown substance that doesn't help your medical condition at all. So you really only want to use totally reputable sources for that. And, we are going over a lot of information with these scams. So on launch, we have a ton of resources for seniors, which we'll put in this watch party today, so that you can use that link to look at more of these and look more in depth at them, because it can be overwhelming to kind of hear all of these scams at once.
It is, but it's, the good thing is that it really brings to light, it really makes an impact of, we think if we're watching out for one particular thing, then we're covered. But it does show that these things are going to come in any different type of direction. They're going to be heading towards us, that we need to be aware of them.
My grandmother got a text message that was like, "Hey, you owe me this money and I'm going to be at your home tomorrow." And she's like, "What? Who is this?"
Oh my God.
Like, don't answer it. Don't respond.
Because somebody would go, "Why?" And they would, they're looking for that engagement, it sounds like. So yeah, these are good tips for seniors, caregivers, and all of us, really. It is very helpful. So what suggestions might you have for us in order to kind of, being aware, being educated is crucial. On top of everything else, I know I can get overwhelmed, like you were saying, and just be like, I'm just going to do my best. So what are some tips that we can do, like on a daily basis, to start really protecting ourselves? Excuse me.
Yeah, no, totally. It can be very overwhelming. And so some steps that you can take now, some tips that you can follow before anything horrible like this could happen, so that you can prevent it. You can start doing these today. So just choosing someone to be open with about your finances that you truly trust, so that someone else knows just in depth, knows the whole roadmap of your finances. As scary as that can be, and maybe nerve-wracking, you want somebody who also knows your finances as well as you. Another one, if you're a launch member, you can sign up for fraud text alerts, because then you'll always know when there's suspicious activity on your account. So that's a great one. You can kind of rest at ease and not be too overwhelmed about also worrying about that, because we've got that handled. Another one is to not keep your valuables or cash in plain sight, especially if you have people coming in and out of your home, whether that's a caregiver, someone who's walking your pets, or someone who's coming in to clean your home. You just want to make sure that you have a secure place where you keep those, that maybe only one other person that you really trust knows about. This is a big one. Get everything in writing before, any emergency or anything may happen. You want to make sure that everything's in writing when it comes to your will, and changing or updating your power of attorney, as well as setting up healthcare directives and all of that in advance, so that that's all done, when everyone's in a clear state of mind and not in panic, when something could be happening, like an emergency. Another thing, if you're not your senior's caregiver, develop a relationship with your senior's caregiver, so that you can be that middleman and you really know what's going on all the time. You can feel safe with your senior being in their hands, your senior can feel safe, and the caregiver can feel supported, knowing that, you're also there to help. Another thing is setting up direct deposit for your senior's check. So this money is just automatically going into your senior's account. You don't have to worry about that check changing hands repeatedly and worrying about maybe it getting cashed by the wrong person, or that money going into someone else's hands. You just know that it's direct deposit in the account, and you can feel safe in knowing that. And it's also really easy to check in your digital banking app. You can do that with Launch. You can check in your digital banking app to see when your checks were deposited, what that account balance is, so that you can keep better track of that. Another one, which a lot of credit bureau agencies are doing right now and allowing, is for you to get weekly or monthly updates on your credit report. So this is huge. So if someone somehow were to get your personal information, and let's say they opened up a credit card or they open up something in your name, you would see this come up on your credit report. And so then you could be like, what's this $20,000 credit card that was opened on my account? This isn't mine. And so you can report it before it really starts to negatively affect your report. So these are just, some things that you can really start to look into before anything were to happen. And of course, if you're a Launch member, or you work with Aging Matters in Brevard, it's important to immediately reach out to someone if you feel you have dealt with some elder financial abuse, because a lot of these cases go unreported, and the more we know, the more we can prevent it in the future. So those are just some tips to go over. And of course, we'll always be providing more tips and doing more of these series so that we can continue to keep everyone up to date on things like this that are happening and can affect the seniors in our community.
I think that's great. That's an amazing amount of information. It's very helpful. What I really like that you said, and it's the same approach that we've had with putting in grab bars or signing up for home care or Meals on Wheels or things like that, because we want to prepare before crisis. So that's the most crucial thing when we talk about things like this, fraud prevention. In fact, we just did a workshop last week because I don't have my healthcare directives and living wills and all those things put together. So my husband and I are like, oh, we should do this. But we talk to people of all ages that haven't gone through those steps because it seems tedious and it seems kind of like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Until we're in that situation of crisis where the worst thing is happening. And we were just like, oh, if I just would have done that thing that I knew in the back of my head I should have done. So that's why I'm really excited that we're partnering with you and other community organizations, because the more information we can get out there, the more, and I like the more task-oriented information. I really like the tips because now there's things to do, right? So I know that whenever I'm nervous, whenever I'm nervous or afraid of something, it's the best way to get over the anxiety is to start working on that thing that you're afraid of and start preparing yourself. And that preparation before crisis is so crucial because no one wants to be dealing with this in the middle and then learning about it at the same time in the middle of the crisis and trying to not only implement the tools, but learn more tools. So this, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah, and start with some tips. And then, you're not alone. You have places like Aging Matters in Brevard and Launch to help you through things like this. So it's important to know you're not alone and that it's little steps that can really prevent something disastrous from happening, for sure.